This chassid learning should be an Asiya, and the learning was supposed to be We're going to start Nun Dalet from the bottom line. So the basic order of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur is that he went into the Holy of Holies to do the Ketairas. He comes back out and he gets the blood from the slaughtered bull that was waiting for him. Someone was stirring the blood. And he's going to take that blood and go back in and sprinkle it inside. So he takes the blood, see that at the bottom line? Takes the blood from the person that was memaris, means stirring it, and the blood would congeal. So he takes it from him, and then he's going to take it inside the Holy of Holies, and he's going to sprinkle it in the Holy of Holies. It says he sprinkles it kematzlef. The expression kematzlef was that it doesn't need to hit. It doesn't have to go above or below. Ela kematzlef. We'll just go kematzlef. So the Gemara asks, "My kematzlef. What is this concept of kematzlef?" Machdi Rabbi Yehuda showed keman gedana, like a whip. Now, the person don't really have clarity. They question, what is this comparison to a whip? What do you mean to a whip? So is the point that you didn't care where the whip hit? Was the point the motion of the finger, that you would go like this and it would like, what exactly is the detail that we're looking for? Rashi seems to be saying that each time it would go lower, that I would sprinkle, if I'm sprinkling 7 times, so each time it would go at 7 and 1. So each time it would be this would drop less, like in a trail. I don't know. I'm not sure what Rashi wants to bring out with that. Okay, Tana, we'll start in a brisa. Kishumaza ina maza ala kapiras, el kenegedevea shel kapiras. Kishumaza lamayla mitzad yadi lamata. Kishumaza lamata mitzad yadi lamayla. Okay, so we're getting what's going on over here. It says that when you sprinkle, you don't sprinkle on the top of hey. You don't sprinkle on the top of the kapiras. Remember, the kapiras is the lid of the aron. Something just happened. So 1 second. Are you guys still there? Yeah. Okay. Something just like took over the whole screen. Okay. So when you sprinkle, you don't have to get it to go on top of the lid of the aron. Remember, he's between the body of aron, between the staves of the aron, and I think he's facing to the west. He's standing on the eastern side. He's facing to the west. That makes sense. And he doesn't have to get it to go on the top of the lid. It says there's one above, which would mean on the lid, and then there were 7 in front of the lid. So it doesn't have to go on the top, and it doesn't have to go on the thickness, on the width of it. It doesn't have to do either. Who's gonna know? Yeah, only himself. Right. He's the only one there. But the guy that goes in to clean, that comes down, they would lower people down in a box to clean against the walls. They shouldn't be able to look around. I don't think he would be able to see either way, because he was only cleaning the walls. He would never see the aron on the floor. I played Mission Impossible. I was on the airplane. And I don't know, I was flying. Every time I flew, they showed the same movie. And I never bought the headphones. Those days you had to buy headphones. So I probably saw it like 6 times, but I don't have a clue what's going on. But I know there was some sort of shaft that someone was going down. Okay. We'll have to. Yeah. Okay. So, Kishumaza l'mayla mitzadid yad l'mata. Kishumaza l'mata mitzadid yad l'mayla. Okay, so it goes like this. He has to do one above and seven below. So the one above, Kishumaza l'mayla, when he's doing the above, it's exactly the opposite of what you would think. He turns his hand this way. It's an underhand. He has to get it above. So he's sprinkling this way, finger. I think it's first finger, right? Above. And when he does Lamata below, then he puts his hand like this and he does overhand. The overhand is like going down, right? And yeah, so. Okay. I think when I made this Mishnayos, that my Rebbe gave that example also. No. Okay, Minani Mili. From where do we know that this is how it's done? Amar Rav Acha Bar Yaakov, Amar Rav Zera, Amar Kra. Rav Acha Bar Yaakov says in the name of Rav Zera, says it's a pasuk. I need a chumash. No, I need two somewhere. Okay. It's 16, 14, 16, 15. Okay. It goes like this. Okay, this is I'm reading from the Chumash. He's going to take from the blood of the cow, of the bull specifically. He's going to sprinkle with his finger al pnei kapiros, on the face of the kapiros. How many times is he going to sprinkle? It doesn't say. Kedma, to the east. Sounds like he's standing to the east and he's sprinkling on the eastern side of it, and as opposed to the western side of it, standing on the other side. And in front of the kapiros, he sprinkles 7 times with his finger. So again, v'hiza betzboi al pnei kapiros. He sprinkles with his finger on the face of the kapiros, which means on the top. Doesn't say how many to the east. And then he sprinkles 7 times in front of the kapiros. Now it says, he now goes out and he shechs the goat. Remember the 2 goats? There was a lottery. Which one was going to be the chatas? Which one was going to be pushed off the plate? And he brings the blood inside, behind the curtain. And he does the same that he did for the bull. Listen to this. The hiza isai, he sprinkles it ala kapiros, on the kapiros. The sprinkles it isai is telling me that there's only 1 sprinkling on the top. But lifnei kapiros, and he sprinkles in front. It doesn't tell me how many times. So where do you know? That was by the bull. Now we're talking about the goat. Very good. How do you know there's 7? So okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to merge them together. We're going to say at the end of the Gemara. Spoiler alert. We're going to do that by the bull. It says 7 below, but it doesn't tell me how many on top. By the goat, it's going to tell me 1 on top, but it doesn't tell me how many below. So I'll learn from the goat 1 on top, the bull 1 on top, and I'll learn from the 7 below by the bull to the goat 7 below by the goat. Okay, so we're asking now.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So you learned this, that the sprinkling was on the side of the aron, but just not on the lid?
Right.
This Rashi, I guess the second Rashi on this page, V'lo haya damim nogeim ba. You learn that to refer just to the lid.
Well,
it didn't touch it.
Eina maze ala kapiros. You don't sprinkle on the top. That means it didn't actually touch it, but it was, aimed towards it.
Yeah, I read all, not to be on, but towards.
Oh.
So that none of the blood would touch the aron.
Right. Yeah, I'm assuming that also. But
so that would mean all the blood ends up on the floor.
Right. Right. And then the whole difference would just be if it's overhand or underhand.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Not on the wall of the aron. Not on the wall of the aron. That we're going to say also, it didn't have to touch it. It was just towards it. As we'll see when he does it outside.
Coming down, Mission Impossible downward. It's just before. It's not.
Yeah. No, they're cleaning the walls of the room. I don't know why what needed fixing. I think because it was plastic, because the gold was not. I don't know. Okay. So we have a pasuk here. It goes like this: V'hiza oisoi ala kapeiras v'lifnei kapeiras. This is the second pasuk. This is a pasuk referring to the goat. He sprinkles it on the lid and in front of the lid. The Gemara asks, Lo yomer lamata b'sar. Why does he have to say below by the sar that he sprinkles it below? The light tzarach doesn't need to say it. The Gemara mimata depart. The Gemara already knows that the end of the Gemara is going to tell us that how do I know that there's 7 times? I learn it from the bowl. It says 7, you sprinkle it 7 times. So why does it have to tell me that I have to sprinkle it by the goat? I'm going to learn it anyway. That whatever I do by the bull, I'm going to do it to the goat. Now the issue is because there's one more verse that says. Kasher asal adam apar. The same thing that you did for the bull, that's what you're going to do. That whatever you did for the bull, that's what you're going to do. So you really don't have to say it. The Gemara is not questioning why do you have to say on the lid, because that we didn't know by the bull that it was only 1 time. We only learned that from the goat. Why do you have to say that you're doing it in front of the lid? That we're going to learn from the bull. So the late tzarich, the Gemara mimata depar. So lama nemer, why does it say it? La kushe al lolifnei. This is a very interesting limud. It's a comparison here. Ma lifnei the lav al. Just like lifnei, when it says lifnei means in front of, and al means on top of. Just like lifnei is not on, af al the lav al. I had some trouble reading this morning. Where to put the comma there. Also, on is not on. So we're making it's there just to tell us that it doesn't actually go onto the surface of it. It just has to be towards it. Because it said al would mean on. This name means in front of. Well, I know that in front of doesn't mean that it's touching it. It could mean in front. In front of has two meanings. It could be on the face of, and it could also mean on the ground. So in front of. It could mean on the side, or it could mean on the ground. So just like in front of his meaning is on the ground, so too al doesn't mean really al, doesn't mean on top of. When it says adarabba, 1 second. The Gemara here also knows the conclusion. That in the end, I'm going to know that I do 1 sprinkling overhand, underhand, 1 up, right? 1 upward. I'm going to do 1 sprinkling upwards. And where do I know that from? From the goat. So really, it doesn't have to tell me that I sprinkle it by the bull, because I'm going to learn that from the goat. Because the number for sure I get from the goat. And if it's going to tell me that you do the same thing as you do for this, so it doesn't have to say it at all. So lama nemer, why does it have to say? We're asking back. I have 2 sprinklings by the bull. I have 2 sprinklings by the goat. We're asking, why does it have to say by the goat the lower one, the in front of? Because I'm going to learn the 7 anyway from the bull. Now that tells me that in front of is extra. In front of is extra tells me that it doesn't need to hit the surface, even the one that's on top. Whereas asking, well, let's go the other way. You have 2 sprinklings by the bull. The one that goes on top, that you're going to need to learn from the side, that it's only 1 time. So that's extra. So just like the Gemara is going to ask, well, why don't you just say that if it's extra, what do I need it for? It's going to tell me that on top, just like on top is literally on top, so to in front of is literally on the face of. It means it has to hit. How do you know which? You have 2 things that are extra. One is an on top by the bull. One is in front of by the goat. If it's in front of by the goat, then it tells me it doesn't need to hit the surface. If I can learn from the on top of the bull that it has to hit the surface. So lamaner malakushi lifnei laal. We'll do it exactly the opposite. we can do a comparison of in front of to on top. Ma al mamish, just like on top is literal. Af lifnei al mamish. Also in front of means literal on the face of. That's two ways of reading lifnei. That's where it comes. That's the issue. Okay, the Gemara says hi mai. 1 second. Hi mai means what this like. Let's analyze this again. Look at this again. If you say that what's really extra is the lower one by the goat, the mile of the parmi baile, I can use the extra one by the bull, which is above, on top of, for something else. Look at the Tana de Bei Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. It was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. The Tana de Bei Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Al Pnei HaKaparis Kedma, it says, on the face of the kaparis to the east, this is telling you that whenever it says the face, it means the east. So I need the word face in that pasuk to tell me pnei, which also means like in front of. But I need the word pnei to tell me that it's that because it says kedma in that pasuk, tell me that pnei means east. On the face of, which says in many places in the Torah, pnei always means the east. Yeah, which way is front? So according to this, the front is the east. But if you say that you're going to use the extra above by the bull as a comparison to learn from it, so lamata de sar lamayasa, I don't have anything to learn from the sar. So basically, what we're doing is we're saying that because I have something else to learn from the extra one by the bull, so I'll use it for that. And then what's going to be extra for us? Just the goat. The goat is going to tell us that it doesn't need to actually touch the surface. It could just go in front of. And in front of doesn't mean on the face of, it can mean on the ground. Okay. Taner Rabbanan, start in a brisa. We have to get back to all of the things that the Gemara knew, but never told us. The Gemara was, that's what makes this Gemara difficult. You have to know the next Gemara to be able to learn this previous Gemara. So now we're going to go through that Gemara. Yeah, the goat was the sin of the people, and the bull was the sin of the Kayan Gadol, his family, and the other Kayanim. They both sin of it. You see? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that we're going to get to on the bottom of the page. The counting of the. Okay.
So the Kohen Gadol ends up there 3 times that day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Taurus,
Par, and Seir.
Seir. And when does he go in to get at the end of the day, he goes back to get the Taurus, to get the pan. He left the pan in there.
Okay, so he's in 4 times. Okay, thank you.
I don't know what happened in that. No, I never found that. I don't know what it's doing on stuff. Okay, Taner Rabbanan. Yeah, 1 second. Okay. Taner Rabbanan was taught in the Brisa. Officially, the Taner Rabbanan don't have an argument, at least in the opening of the Taner Rabbanan. That's officially the rule by Taner Rabbanan. Rav Shir Gain just says the Taner Rabbanans come from an edited brisa by Rav Chi and Rav Aishia. An important brisa. So some brises start off Tanya, they don't always start off with the Taner Rabbanan. Okay, Vehiza is Sayala Kapiris Lefnei Kapiris. We're quoting the pasuk by the goat. You'll sprinkle it, meaning once, on the kapiris, on the lid, Lefnei Kapiris, and in front of the lid. It doesn't tell us how many times in front, but it tells us once on. Lamadna Kama Lamaila Besar. We've learned how many times above by the sar? Achas, that it's one time above. Why? Because it says Oisai. It. Yeah, it means one. Lamata Besar any idea Kama, but I don't know how many times we sprinkle of the goat when it's going in front of, towards the ground, right? Already done. So we're going to learn. Nemru damim lamata b'par, nemru damim lamata b'sar. It says that you sprinkle the blood below by the bull, and it also says by the goat. Malamata b'par sheva. Just like by the bull, it says 7 times. Aflamata b'sar sheva. So also the goat will be 7 times. So I'm going to learn the goat from the bull. Like or maybe you should not do it like this. Kalcha means like go away from this. Maybe I should learn goat from goat. How many times do I sprinkle above by the goat? It says clearly once. Just like I do once by the goat above. You should do below once. How do you know you cross the line, you cross over to the bull to learn from it? Maybe you just learn from the goat to the goat. So near Lemi Daima, let's see which one is it more similar to. Done in Mata Mi Mata, being done in Mata Mi Maila. No, we should go the other way because we're sprinkling below. We should learn from the bull, which is also below. Don't learn below from above. Learn below from below, just like by the bull at 7, also by the goats at 7. The Gemara says, Adarabba, on the contrary, done in Gufa Mi Gufa, being done in Gufa Mi Alma. I should learn goat from goat, not goat from bull. Yeah, what it's doing is it's trying to see what should be more similar. It's trying to wake you up. So Talmud Leimar, the pasuk tells us, "Va'asa es damai kasher asa l'dama par." You do the blood as you did for the bull. Shein Talmud Leimar kasher asa. Those words are extra kasher asa. It says va'asa es damai. You do the blood, perform the blood. Kasher asa, as you perform l'dama par for the blood of the par. Now, what could it have said? Could have said you should perform the blood. Chidamapar, maybe. You don't have to repeat the as you perform. You should perform as you perform. Doesn't have to do that. It could say you should perform as the blood of the par. So why does it have to say repeat kasherasa as you did, as you perform? That everything should be similar. Just like the sprinkling of the blood of the bull below was 7 times. Also, the blood of the goat should be 7 times. Okay, we're done. 7 times below by both the bull, which says clearly in the pasuk, and the sar, which we're going to learn from that because it says kasher asa. But I don't know how many times to sprinkle above by the bull. Already done. So we'll learn. It says the blood above by the goat, and it says the blood above by the bull. Just like by the goat, it's once sprinkling because it says I saw it, which it didn't do by the part. So we'll learn. If it's once by the goat, it's going to be once by the bull. Or maybe you should go away from this logic. Just look at the bull itself. We're trying to figure out how many times by the bull do you sprinkle above. It says 7 times below by the bull. It doesn't tell me how many times above. Maybe I should learn below to above. That just like below is 7, so to above should be 7. Just like the bull itself is 7. So it says, well, let's see what it's more similar to. We should learn what's above from what's above. The goat is above and it's once, so too the bull above should be once. It says, Adarab, on the contrary. We should learn the bull from the bull. We shouldn't learn itself from somewhere else. So Talmud Laimar we quote that passage that we quoted before. You perform for the goat as you performed for the bull. It didn't need to say as you performed the second time. What is it coming to tell me? That everything is equal. Just like by the bull it was 7 times below. So too by the goat 7 times below. Just like by the goat it's once above. Also by the bull it's once above. Okay. No, it doesn't. It can't be none because no, it does say. It just doesn't say how many. Look, it says, take the blood from the bull and sprinkle it with your finger on the surface of the kapairos to the east, and in front of the kapairos, sprinkle it 7 times. So that it doesn't tell me how many times to sprinkle it on the surface.
Yeah. If I think to do something, you want to default, then you want.
Yeah, I do have 7 below. I can learn.
That's good. Huh? Might cover both.
Yeah, we do have a concept of binyanat that if it says it's somewhere, I assume everything else is like that as well. Well, that's what we did before. We call it mamatzino in Rabbi Shmuel Eretz binyanat, but it's the same thing. If you find it somewhere, so that's probably where it is everywhere. The Rashis over here are very interesting. I'll point it out after the next Gemara. It's an interesting thing here. The first Rashi, you sprinkle with your finger. Hazo achas b'mashma. V'hiza be'etzvai is the way Avram Nassan saying. It doesn't tell me how many times, and Rashi knows already without telling me that I learned from the goat. V'hiza be'etzvai is talking about by the bull. Hazo achas b'mashma. The pasha pshat is that it's just once, even without the isa, even without the hit. That's how Rashi is learning. Yeah, that's a problem. My teacher, Rashi, of course, knows it. My teacher in 4th grade would have said, "Bring the Torah to me, Machomesh." Yeah, there's a good REA on this. And then there's a Mizrahi. They're learning that Rashi is getting it from where the Gemara is getting it. But I don't know. So Rashi's Pasuk Pshat, right? The simple, but he's not really the simple Pshat because there are other Mefarshim that are more simple than Rashi. Ibn Ezra is really Pashat, like the way you read it. So, but Rashi is the Pashat Pshat of Chazal. From Chazal, from what the Gemara tells us, there's a lot of different commentaries, interpretations in the Gemara on each pasuk. Rashi takes from Chazal the most simple. The Ibn Ezra is more simple than that, but he doesn't always go with what Chazal say. Right? So Rashi should be telling me the way the Gemara says it, but in this Rashi, it doesn't seem to be doing it. Okay, let's go further. Achas v'achas. Achas v'shtayim, you sprinkle once, sprinkle 1 and 1, 1 and 2. Tanur Rabbanan, start in the Brisa. Achas, once. Achas v'achas, 1 and 1. Achas v'shtayim, 1 and 2. Achas v'shalosh, 1 and 3. Achas v'arba, 1 and 4. Achas v'chamish, 1 and 5. Achas v'shesh, 1 and 6. Achas v'sheva, 1 and 7. 1 and 7. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. See on the side, there's another gersa, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's gonna, if you change the gersa, we're gonna have a problem with the Gemara. Let's leave it as it is. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, actually, not necessarily. Let's see. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Achas, once. Achas v'achas, 1 and 1. Shtayim v'achas, 2 and 1. Shalish v'achas, 3 and 1. Arba v'achas, 4 and 1. Chamish v'achas, 5 and 1. Sheish v'achas, 6 and 1. Sheva v'achas, 7 and 1. The Gemara says V'leit Ligim. There's really no machlekes. Marki Asrei and Marki Asrei. Depends what the custom is over there. My grandmother used to sing it. 7 and 20 blackbirds baked in a fire. What's that? Is that 4 and 20? I thought it was like 7 and 20 blackbirds. Something when the pie was open, the birds began to sing. So apparently in Old English they didn't say 27. They said 7 and 20. How do you get school? Oh, wow. Yeah, how much is a score?
20.
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
So, how do we say in Yiddish? Eins und zwanzig, right? 21. In Yiddish, we say the small number first. Right? By sphere timer, how do we do it? We say the small number first. Magen Avraham says we do the small number first because that's how we do it in Yiddish. In English, we don't do it like that. In English, we say 21, 22. We say the large number first. So what's happening here is that when you have a large number and a small number, it's a machlekes, not a machlekes. It depends where they live. Reb Meir, wherever Reb Meir lived. You know where Reb Meir lived? No, he lived in an English speaking. Oh, Achaz. Yeah, Yiddish speaking. He has a small number first. I don't know clearly where Reb Meir lived. In Rabbi Yehuda, where Rabbi Yehuda is buried. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi. Right outside Smas. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi does it the other way. Does the large number first, like we do in English. Okay. The Kuli al Mamiyas, however, everyone, you can't drop the first number that you said. In other words, you sprinkled once above, and now you're not continuing to count above because there's only one. Now you start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all below, but you're still saying achas from the one that you sprinkled above. Why does he have to keep holding on to that number? My timer. Why does he have to say 1 plus another 1 plus 2, 1 plus? So Rabbi Elazar Amar, Rabbi Elazar says, we're jumping to Amirayim now. We're in Eretz Yisrael in Bavaria, and we're discussing the Mishnayos, the Tanai. The Amirayim are discussing the Tanai. It says, Shalayita Bazais, shouldn't make a mistake. Why would he make a mistake? Because he may continue counting from the first one, and he'll say number 2, and he really didn't do 1 below. He's up to number 2 from 2, including the 1 above. So we want to always hold on to that 1. So you should do 1, then 1, and then 2. That's where the problem would come in. Why can't he stop after 2? It's up to 2. Let's do 3. No? I don't know. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Kra. Rabbi Yochanan says in the pasuk, in front of the kaperes he sprinkles. Which pasuk was that? That was by the bull. He's going to sprinkle 7 times. So Shein Talmud Leimer Yaser didn't need to say sprinkle, because if you look at the pasuk, it says he takes the blood of the bull and he sprinkles it with his finger on the kaperes to the east, and in front of the kaperes he sprinkles. So it didn't have to say he sprinkles again, because he started off with the verb was at the beginning of the sentence. So he says, so Rabbi Yochanan says the counting is not because of a mistake, a possible mistake. The counting is because it says so in the pasuk, or there's a limit from the pasuk. My binaya. So what's the difference between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Elazar is a student of Rabbi Yochanan. He says that you sprinkle because of a mistake, possible mistake. You count because of a possible mistake. And Rabbi Yochanan says that you count because it says so in the pasuk. The difference is if he didn't count, but he also didn't make a mistake. According to Rabbi Yochanan, there was a violation there. According to Rabbi Elazar, there was no violation.
So he's treating counting as a mitzvah?
He's making the counting as a mitzvah. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Because
So-
you read so many places that there are only 3 places where counting is a mitzvah.
Whoa.
What do you mean? Where does it say that?
Sphirisa, oh, look, I got a virtual trophy. Sphirisa Omer,
Okay.
Shemitah, and Yovel.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I mean, take the rest of the day off, sir. Take the rest of the day off.
Take the week.
Yeah, take the week.
Take them 7 years old.
Take 7 years off. That's what sentence gave you.
Yeah.
One sabbatical.
I'm not sure if that's if that's so clear, because what about the 7 days of counting by a nida, by a zava?
Okay, get back to work.
Yeah, back to work. Or maybe that counting isn't a mitzvah. That counting is just to make sure that they don't make a mistake.
I thought that's what this was here, that it was just to
Sorry?
not make, I thought that's why there was no fleegy here, because either way you count from low to high or high to low, it's just so you don't make a mistake.
Oh,
That's how I interpreted no fleegy, perhaps wrongly.
I think late fleegy meant that it didn't matter which way you did it. It was just telling you what the way that they said it. Well, they weren't really arguing. They were just saying the way that they would talk, but they had no problem with the other one. Okay. Yatzavinicho al kain hazav shebehecho, or kan hazav shebehecho. He went out and he had the blood in his hand, well, in a container in his hand, and he did the sprinkling. The only thing that he has to do now is he has to shech the goat and go back in. We spoke about the goat. One second. He shechted the bull. Someone mixes the blood of the bull so it doesn't congeal. He does the ketairos. When he's finished the ketairos, he comes back, gets the blood from the person that was mixing it. And okay, but now he already did the sprinkling from the bull. He walks out of the Kodesh HaKodashim and he puts it down on a pedestal that's in the Heichal. Right? Pedestal. Something that could hold this mizrak. It's a mizrak, a bowl, some sort of bowl with a handle. So he puts it down over there, and now he has to go shech the goat. Remember, there were 2 goats. One's going to get pushed off the cliff, and one's going to be shechted. So he has to shech the goat. So he puts that down, and then he goes out to shech. Tanan Hassam was taught there. Rabbi Yehuda says, Leia Shefer Slakini Chayva, Nea Tarubas. Rabbi Yehuda says, I want to share one thing I saw. That you don't have this in your Gemara, unless you have it in the Gemara. There's a Gemara Sukkah that says that on that big shul in Alexandria, so where they used the cloth, so one of the things that it says over there is that there were 71 tiers of gold corresponding to the Sanhedrin. Place was asked, but Rabbi Yehuda says that there were only 70 in the Sanhedrin. So, and it was, who was talking over here? It was Rabbi Yehuda that was describing the Sanhedrin, the great synagogue in Alexandria. And he says that there were 71 chairs. The problem is in Sanhedrin, and it was corresponding to the Sanhedrin. Problem is that actually in Sanhedrin, Rabbi Yehuda argues, he says that there's not 71, there's only 70. So Rabbi Yehuda's, there's a problem here. So therefore, he says that there was one extra, I'm sorry? So the answer is, what Taisa says is that for the best of the Sanhedrin, Muflish of the Bezdin, the head of the Sanhedrin had his own chair, and it means the Nasi. He wasn't part of the count. If you don't say this, there's a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gra asks, if you don't say this, there's a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. What do you mean? The whole Taisus was a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Taisus repeat that? If you don't say this, there's a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda. So they want to say, based on our Gemara, that Rabbi Yehuda says that you always say the large number first. So it shouldn't have been Ayin Aleph. It shouldn't have been 71. It should have been, I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda says you always say the smaller number first. So it should have been, if it was one count, then it should have been 1 in 70, not in 71. So what we're going to answer is the fact that it says 71, that it's 70, and then there was one extra for someone else that wasn't part of this 70. It wasn't one number. It doesn't fit perfectly. It's a gra. It doesn't fit perfectly because this is also not 1 and 1, not 1 and 2. It's also something else. Okay, it's cute, but it doesn't work. Is he going to be part of it? I don't know. He has his own way of judging. He judges by smell. Yeah. Pheromones. Okay. Yatza v'nichal kinazav shebechal tanan hasam. We'll start over there. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Rabbi Yehuda says. No, that's not reason. Shayfris is an ancient word for a pushka. Shofar. Oh. Ooh. A bit early. The professors, yeah. So the the reason why was because there was they would drop the coins down in there, and it would be closed here. When they put a coin in, no one could get their hand in to get it out.
Oh, yes. This is the coin that they use in the base Mikdash.
Oh wow! This is the real thing. This is silver, no? This is a real. Is this a shekel? Shekel HaKodesh. This is the real thing. Anyway, let me just do the demonstration. Okay. So they would put. They had shayfras. However, there's a problem. Kine chayva.
No, it's a real thing. Yeah, with the dollar sign there.
No, it's just a mold. No, but then you
Mold
mold
weight.
So,
it's a gold.
was the shekel was gold? No.
No, but remember the rat to say shekel
Oh.
down, there's no gold one.
Uh-huh.
Small, but it's must be safe.
So they didn't have shayfras for kine chayva. The way it would work was that you put money into these pushkas. The kainim would come along, see how much money was there, and they would do the offering for you. You didn't have to follow up on it. You would put the money in, and then the kainim would just take the money and exchange it for the birds that they had a supply of, and then they would offer it. So Rabbi Yehuda says that they didn't do that for chayva, obligatory sin offerings. Because it could get mixed up. Why? Because there would be a shayfer for donations. There would be a shayfer for obligations. They didn't want to bring it wrong. So, or maybe the person would put it into the wrong one, or the kohen would take. I don't know if they were suspecting that the kohen would do something wrong. Probably maybe with a. Right. The Gemara asks, "My mitnei taruvas." They may mix up a obligatory offering with a donation offering. Abai is a student of Rabbi Yosef. He always challenges and discusses with Rabbi Yosef this saying. So he says, so why don't you just make two and write on it? What's the problem? Put a sign on that says this is for chayva, this is for obligation, this is for donation. Right on it. So the Gemara, so I guess Rabbi Yosef answered him, Rabbi Yehuda less like Siva. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold up writing. It's like some of my students. The Tanan, no, the present come. The Tanan, Rabbi Yehuda says, you see, there was only one pedestal. There's a machlekes in our Mishnah. If there's two bowls of blood. The bull had blood and the goat had blood. So they would put the blood of the bull down, and they would go out and shech the goat, and they would come back in, and then they would put down the blood of the goat when he was done, and then they would mix it. But there were two. Rabbi Yehuda says no. If there's two, then you're going to get mixed up. So Rabbi Yehuda said there's only one. That means you put it down, and you have to always switch it right away. We don't want two to be sitting there; you'll get mixed up. You see, why does Rabbi Yehuda say that you might get mixed up? Because my time loy. Why don't you have two? Because you'll mix up. Why don't you just write on it? Hide the par, hide the sar. You write on the pedestal. This is for the goat. This is for the. Rabbi Yehuda less like Siva. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold up writing. He doesn't hold of the words that say walk and don't walk. He wants the guy he doesn't think people are gonna look at the words and actually read it. They're not gonna. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Very good. Yitzi thought of this. Shali Shayfers say b'mikdash. There were 13 Shayfers in the mikdash. But Yakasav Aleim, and on the Shayfers it said Taklin Chadatin, Taklin Atikin. New Shkalim. Takel is a shekel because of shin and the top in Aramaic are interchangeable. So, yeah, we had this in Shkalim. So Taklin, Shkalim, new, and Taklin Atikin in old. And old means that if I didn't give last year, I can come and give for last year. Kinen for the birds, goes Layla, the Isla birds, Eitzim, wood, Levina, frankincense, Zav, Kapyrus, gold for the Kapyrus. I'm not sure exactly what that was supposed to be. Gold for the Kapyrus. What would they fix? Maybe it means to replace gold that's lining things. Oh, Kapyrus would mean the atonements. Okay. Shisha and Nadava, and 6 were for donations. That's a total of 13. Taklan Chadatin El Skalam Shal Kol Shana V'Shana. The new Skalam, that's for the current year. Taklan Atikin Mislei Shakal Shtakid Yishkol Shana Ba. Someone that didn't give the last year can give this year, the following year. Kinan Hein Teri Guys Leila. What are Kinan? Those are the burnt offerings. And I'm sorry, Hein Tyrin. Those are the birds. Goizli Ayla, Hein B'nei Yaina. Those are the doves. Tyrin, pigeons, young doves, turtle doves. One is whatever. We don't know exactly. The Kulan Aylas, they're all Aylas. They're Rabbi Yehuda. This is what Rabbi Yehuda says, and we have a problem. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold the writing. People are going to get mixed up. So Tiyasir Abdimi Amar Amri b'Marav Gzerim Shem Chata Shemesa Bala. So we changed the pshat over here. It doesn't have to do with people not reading what's written. Didn't you see the sign? It doesn't have to do with that. We have another problem. We have a problem. Why didn't they have shayfers for kine chayva, for birds of obligation, the birds of obligatory offerings? Because it's possible that the owner died, and therefore we didn't have a pushka for that for that money, because we wanted it to be given independently, each person separately. Because if it was just a pushka, maybe the owner died, you're going to be bringing for someone that died. So, do we suspect that someone died? But we have a Mishnah. If someone sends his sin offering from a distant country, we assume that the owner is still alive and will offer the sacrifice. We don't assume that Well, maybe he died in the interim. Although Rabbi Yehuda was worried at the beginning of the Masechta. Remember, at the beginning of the Masechta, we said that you have to designate another wife for the Kohen Gadol in case his wife dies. And they told him back, we don't suspect you're dying, right? But the Gemara doesn't get into this. Okay, we don't suspect that the person that sent the sacrifice died. We're not talking about that maybe the person died and we don't know about it. We're talking about that the person actually died. So the Gemara says, well, so what? If the guy died, so you have a whole pushka full of coins. Take 4 of those coins and throw them into the sea because his sacrifice is not being brought. Throw it into the sea and bring the other sacrifices. What's the problem? So it says, "V'hanach dinishtairo." V'hanach nishtairo. Use the rest. The Gemara says, "Rabbi Leslie Breira." Rabbi doesn't hold a Breira. Breira means retroactive determination of what we're doing now. Means that that's how it was originally. As we're going to choose coins now. And we're going to make it like as if that's the coins that were meant always for that person. Rabbi doesn't hold of that. It says Minolan. How do you know Rabbi doesn't hold of that? If you want to say it's because we have a Mishnah that says if someone buys wine from non-Jews, Kutim are the Samaritans. They moved to Israel because who moved the who moved the 10 tribes? Was it Sancherib or Tiglas Place or some? Someone moved the 10. Whichever king, he moved back. Say that again. Shalmaneser. Yeah. So he moved so he didn't want the place to be filled with wild animals because if you leave a place without any inhabitants, so he moved in these kutim. But then the wild animals were coming and the lions were coming and eating the kutim. The kutim complained. They said that if you don't keep the Torah, the land of Israel can't hold you. So they got teachers to come teach them Torah and they converted. But it turned out, though, that they weren't sure if they were real converts. Maybe they converted just because of the lions, but they didn't really want to keep the Torah. Or maybe, no, they were real converts. And then they found an idol that they were worshiping on the Mount Gerizim. And they said, okay, now they're not Jewish. Oh, maybe we didn't need that. That's cute. No, so we're not by the Breira yet. 1 second. So
I showed that that's the example that we don't know what
yeah. Menachem Mendel was asking, but we also did this. We also accepted the Torah because of the mountain. So, okay, so if someone buys wine from Kutim, Erev Shabbos Simcha Shecha, it's Erev Shabbos. It's about to get dark. What he does is like this. He says, later on, I'll separate 2 lugim of this wine and it'll be truma. Asara, 10 lugim I'm going to separate. That's going to be my sarish, and that will be the first type. Tisha, 9 of them will be Meiser Sheni, will be the second type. The first type you give to the Levium, the second type you take to Yerushalayim to eat it then. And what he does is, he right away redeems the Meiser Sheni and he starts to drink. Now, in this container, in this barrel, you still have the Truma, you still have the Meiser, it's all in there. The Meiser Sheni you redeemed because that's Meiser Sheni could be redeemed. But the other ones are still in there. Now, Divrei Reb Meir, that's what Reb Meir says. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosi, Reb Shimon Isim. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosi, and Reb Shimon, those are all of Reb Meir's friends. They say, no, you can't do that. Alma ein Breira. Why do they say you can't do that? Because
so this was before they thought that they were not Jewish.
Yeah. So this was at a time. Yeah, there's a complication here. Yeah, there's a problem with buying wine from someone that worships idols. There's a problem there. So it has to be that they were considered at this point Jewish.
Oh, here actually says couldn't sneak through a lane.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon say you can't do this. Now the question is why. We're thinking right now because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of Breira, because Breira would mean that when I'm done drinking this barrel, I have 10 lugim left on the bottom that are going to be Maisa. I have 2 lugim left that are going to be Truma. And according to Reb Meir, that's fine. That was what I originally meant to be Truma. But Reb Yehuda says, I can't do that. I can't say that what you're going to determine at the end was what was decided originally. It's not retroactive that was what you meant originally. I don't say that. In other words, the Truma is somewhere in here. And it doesn't have, just because at the end you pulled out 2 and you say that that's it, that doesn't mean that was what it was originally. You said it's in here. So wherever it is in here. But you can't decide later and then retroactively say that that's what it was. The Gemara says, Mimai, how do you know that's the pshat? And you're trying to look for a source where Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of Breira. So we have this story with wine. Maybe that's not the pshat. Maybe over there's a special reason. Read further. It says, Reb Meir, they told their mayor, there's a concern like this. He's going to drink the whole barrel of wine. It's big for Greg. He says, don't worry about it. At the end of he's going to leave a little on the bottom. At the bottom, that's going to be his truma. Everything that he owes is all going to be paid up with that. But maybe the barrel's going to burst at the end. And what happened here? He drank wine without taking truma. The truma was never taken. Now we know why it broke. Right? He just drank a barrel of wine. So, v'amalahem, Reb Meir responded, "Likashi baka." It didn't break. We don't suspect that it's going to break. In most cases, the bottle doesn't break. So, Ella. So we need another source for where Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold the Breira. Midatani Ayay. Ayay is the name of a Myra. Tani Ayay. Ayay taught. Rabbi Yehuda says, oh, there's dots on top of Ayay. Oh, Ayay. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Eina the Masna Sneidvarm Kechad. This we had an Erevin. A person can't make a condition on 2 sides of the city at the same time. Elam Bachacham Lemizrach, Eruv Lemizrach, Lamarav, Eruv Lamarav. Avalakan Loy. What happens is like this: you're not allowed to walk out of the city more than 2,000 amas. However, you want to go to hear the drasha. So the rabbi, if he comes to the east, so you're going to put the Erev to the east. If he's coming to the west, you put the Erev. You'll be able to walk outside those big areas there where the rabbi would speak. It's on Shabbat. Right. The problem is you don't know which side the rabbi's coming to. You know he's coming, you don't know which side. So you put an Erev on both. And you say that if I hear that he came to this side, I'll go to that side. If I hear, I'll go to that side. Rabbi says you can't do that. We asked the question, why can't you do it to both sides and then you'll decide later? The Ein Breira, because you don't want to either. We don't say that, well, what you're going to decide later is what you meant originally. It's Breira, retroactive. To the east, to the west also. How can you say that you're going to put it over there to the east? Yeah, what does this mean here? The Mizrach Hamarif. Was he actually putting it to both sides, or is it saying you can't do it to either side? I think it's saying if you don't hold the Breira, then and the Chacham didn't come yet, how does your Erev take effect? And when the Chacham shows up, how does it take effect? So Vamar Rabbi Yechanan says, Kishikvar ba Chacham. No, it's not a retroactive determination. It's actually the Chacham already came on Erev Shabbos. You didn't find out about it till later. It says, if that's the case, we now have a source for Rabbi Yehuda that he holds Ein Breira, then Aksiva Islay. Then he holds that you can write. You see, we had 2 possibilities. why you didn't have the shofar that had the birds of chayva. One possibility was because came brera. Another possibility was because you didn't want to write on it and people won't read it. So the only thing is, we're now saying that Rabbi Yehuda has no problem with the writing. You could write. That's not our issue. Our issue is that someone may have died, and all the money there is going to have to be thrown out because we can't determine now which one was that person's money. So, if that's the case, then Yom Kippur nami navitrei v'nechtav alayo. On Yom Kippur, why do you have two pedestals? Rabbi Yehuda says there's only one. Two pedestals, one for the blood of the par, and one for the blood of the sar. And if he holds of writing, so you'll write on it. Say this one's for the par, this one's for the sar. It says Mishum Chosr the Kohen Gadol, Lava Daite. Because the Kohen Gadol is fasting, he won't pay attention. If you don't say this, but like Sivanami, why do you even have to write? One of them is full, and one of them is less full, because the bull has a lot of blood, and the goat has a little bit of blood. So, well, maybe we'll say that the Kohen Gadol didn't get all the blood of the bull; he only got some, so it's the same size. It says, "V'amar Rav Yehuda." Rav Yehuda says, "Hashechet tzarich shekablas kol damish nemer par kol damish shel par nemer ves kol dama par yishbech el yisoid hamizbeach." Rav Yehuda says that you have to get all the blood. So one of them is very full, one of them isn't so full. So the Kohen Gadol should be able to tell anyway. Obviously, because of his fasting, he's going to make mistakes, and we need to clarify that. No, a bull has to be, I think, 2 years old. Otherwise, it's considered an egel. Otherwise, it's an egel. Egel Shar. I think it goes Egel Shar. It's 3 years old. Egel Shar Par. Those are different names for the same animal. To get all the blood. It's a big one. So he's carrying a lot. How big is the Mizrak? Is the question. How big is the Dilma Mishtapach Minei? Maybe some spilled out. It says Hai Chiver v'Hai Sumak. What does that mean? What do you have in your translation? One is white and one is red. What is that referring to?
Made the color of the blood.
Red wine and white.
No.
The bull and the sire ones.
Let me see what yours says. This blood has a pale shade of red, while this blood is bright crimson hue.
That was right. Yes.
We said before that the gold had the shade of blood because it was red. So one of the bloods has a different shade of red. So the Gemara says he could tell the Kohen Gadol lavadaita. Because the Kohen Gadol is fasting, he doesn't have his awareness. So the Kohen Gadol lavadaita. Okay. There was a person that went to the Amud in Rava's shul. Amar, he says, Yatza, he's davening on Yom Kippur. So the Kohen Gadol goes out, and he puts it down on the second pedestal that's in the Heichal, not al damapar. He takes the blood of the bull, v'niach damasar, and he puts down the blood of the sar. Amalei, Rava tells them, you're mixing up opinions over here. If you're telling me that there's two pedestals, that means you're going like the Rabbanan. If you're saying that you're putting down the Damapar first, if you're taking the Damapar first and then you're putting that down the Damasar, that's because there's only one. Otherwise, you'd put the Damasar in the other one. You don't have to exchange it like that. You can put down the Damasar first before you take the Damapar and stick with the opinion of the Rabbanan. Okay, let's leave the Gemara over here. Shekaya. Well, we got this.